5.
Good evening and welcome to the City Council meeting for Tuesday, September the 6th, 2022. Ms. Hilbrick, will you please call roll?
Councilman De La Garza?
I am present.
Councilwoman Solis?
Here.
Councilman Crocker?
Here.
Councilwoman Scott?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Young?
Here.
Councilman Lofgren?
Here.
And Mayor Bauknight.
Here. If everybody please rise for the pledges, followed by a moment of silence. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Thank you. Again, good evening. Mr. Garza, do you have any announcements and reminders? I have one. Thanks.
I've never had a mic that I've had to turn on before. Good evening, Mayor and Council. We do have a couple of announcements, but happy to entertain yours first.
Okay. Ms. Hilbrick, will you help me out, please?
Yes, sir. Whereas hunger and poverty are issues of vital concern in Texas, whereas 14% of people face hunger and 1 in every 4 children do not know where their next meal will come from. And whereas the City of Victoria is committed to taking steps to combat hunger in every part of our community and to provide additional resources and those in Victoria in need. And whereas the City of Victoria is committed to working with the Food Bank of the Golden Crescent, a member of the Feeding America nationwide network of food banks, in educating people about the role and importance of food banks in addressing hunger and raising awareness of the need to devote more resources and attention to hunger issues. And whereas nearly 44,000 families in the Golden Crescent region rely on food provided by the Food Bank of the Golden Crescent each month, and whereas the coronavirus pandemic has had a devastating health and economic impacts across the country, and the Food Bank of the Golden Crescent has distributed approximately 5 million pounds of food to people in 11 counties this year through its network of food pantries, soup kitchens, shelters, and other community organizations. And whereas the month of September has been designated Hunger Action Month in order to bring attention to food insecurities in our communities and to engage the public in action, including volunteerships, social media shares, and donations to ensure nobody has to make an impossible choice between food and other necessities like medicine, utilities, and childcare. And whereas food banks across the country, including the Food Bank of the Golden Crescent, continue to work tirelessly through the month of September to bring awareness and help and hunger in our local community. Now, therefore, I, Jeff Bauknight, Mayor of the City of Victoria, do hereby recognize September 2022 as Hunger Action Month in Victoria, Texas, and call this observance to the attention of our citizens.
On behalf of the Food Bank of the Golden Crescent, we thank the City Council and the Mayor and all of the community members for their support throughout these years. We have just recently moved into our new location. We spent our first day there today. This location doubles our capacity in the warehouse and triples our refrigeration, allowing us to do so much more for the 11 counties that we serve. I also want to extend an invitation. The council should be getting official formal invitations to our open house September the 16th. But I'd like to go ahead and extend an informal one. It's 8 to 12? Mm-hmm. 8 to 12, and 9 to 12 Friday. We're also doing an open one for the community on Saturday, so put that on your calendar. We hope to see you there. And again, thank you so much for your continued support.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we do have a couple of introductions for you this evening. I'm going to ask Chief Fox to come up and make the first introduction.
Thank you, Mr. Garza, Mayor, members of council. Really excited how the saying goes, great things come to those who wait, and we've been waiting for a new fire marshal for the past 6-8 months. So really excited to introduce Mr. Daron Lewis. He comes to us from Lake Jackson, where he's assistant fire marshal, and we were really excited about his energy, enthusiasm, and creativity he's going to bring to Victoria. So I'll turn it over to him for a few words.
I'm so excited to be here. I appreciate the opportunity that I've gotten. Chief Fox has a lot of faith in me, and I plan on making the best of it. I look forward to working with each and every one of you guys and working with the community. If you guys need anything from me, I'm a phone call away, and I'm very energetic, so I will come running. But I look forward to working with you guys, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis.
Welcome. Thank you.
We're excited to have you, and we all look forward to getting to know you a little bit better as well. So, welcome.
All right, Allison is going to make our second introduction.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I do not have a name on the agenda because I wasn't sure he was going to get to make it tonight, but I am also very excited to introduce you to our newest Assistant City Attorney. Mr. Adam West is joining us this evening. You want to come on up here? He has recently moved to town with his family. He has 4 children, brand new to Victoria, from Giddings, where he was a county attorney for 3 years. Previously, he practiced in Arizona, and before that, he was an elementary school teacher. So we are very, very excited to have him in our office, and I am excited for you all to get to know him. Adam West.
I don't have a lot to say, but I will say, before you get to the Batman jokes, I beat you to it.
I had the pleasure of meeting Mr. West this morning as he came to work and rang the bell. I was the only one up there and got to open the door for him on his first day. That is not typically what happens. It was a pleasure to meet you this morning, yeah. Allison had threatened me.
All right.
All right.
That's all we got.
That's it for announcements and reminders. Let's jump into public and employee recognitions.
All right, I'm going to ask Daryl Lisak to come up and help introduce the Keep Victoria Beautiful Award.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Christy's out, so I get the honors tonight. Just a quick reminder, before I introduce Meredith Bird, the current chair of Keep Victoria Beautiful, September 24th, we have our fall sweep cleanup. We already have 170 people signed up online, volunteers. We got room for another 170 if possible, but we'll take as many as we can get. Just go to keepvictoriabeautiful.org. And you can go to the volunteer tab and put your name on there, and we will find some place for you to help us pick up trash that day. And so what I'd like to do is introduce Meredith Bird, the current chair of Keep Victoria Beautiful, to introduce you to this month's beautification winner. Meredith.
Thanks, Joel. Before I begin, I just want to say how privileged I feel. What a privilege it is to be associated with Keep Victoria Beautiful. I'm so proud of this group and all of our board members and all of our volunteers. And Daryl, thank you so much for everything you do for us. Appreciate that. Tonight, I'm here to recognize our September award winner. And this one goes to Sonic Drive-In at 3000 Ford North Navarro. This is the one close to the intersection of Airline. And it's particularly meaningful when a business like this, a fast food restaurant that just in their very nature is going to generate a lot of trash. It has a lot of customer traffic. They're located on Victoria's busiest thoroughfare. We have a 15-mile-an-hour southeast wind that blows all year round. And when I was, I'm part of the committee that obviously judges the nominees for the awards, and when I drove up to Sonic, I was floored because it was spotless. And of course, our nominees have no idea that we're coming, that they've even been nominated, and so they're not putting on a good face because they think that they have something to win. This location is just spotless just for the sake of putting that face forward for their community. And so tonight, I'm so proud on behalf of Keep Victoria Beautiful to present Garland and BJ Sandhop with the September Business Beautification Award.
I would like to thank the community of Victoria for the nomination and for your patronage and for your business. If it wasn't for the community, we would not have a Sonic town. And when I go to Dallas or anywhere where we're looking at Sonic franchisees, they are very envious of Victoria because we can truly, and they know that we are a Sonic town. And I thank you for that. And the second group I'd like to acknowledge is my general manager, Mike Gonzalez, and the crew that, and y'all know how difficult it is these days to get a crew to work. They work tirelessly, and they are fabulous at that location. And again, thank you for helping us keep Victoria beautiful, and our commitment, Garland, and I love flowers. You couldn't tell, right? Our commitment to this community is to continue to keep it beautiful at our sites, because I love seeing flowers when you drive up. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for the pride you take. Oh, yes, sir.
Amazingly, asking an attorney not to say much is not always easy, so I'll keep that short and sweet.
And y'all have made my week by recognizing my wife or her landscaping at the Sonics. So that's been real nice for me. And because she heads up the compliment department and doesn't get that many calls, I head up the complaint department, and I get plenty of calls. So now y'all know where to call if you're, or who to call if you have a complaint or a compliment. But I want to thank y'all again for everything that y'all provide in this town. And I have also been involved in helping clean up a lot over on Salem Road that belongs to my father, who wasn't so good at cleaning it up. And I want to recognize an employee that y'all had, and I may get her name wrong. Was it Gloria, Mary or Marie? What was the first name? She just retired August 26th. Grace Marie. She was unbelievable. It's a loss for y'all to have her, but she did a great job with me. After me making a complaint to her, she turned it around to a positive thing. And I'm beginning to recognize probably all of it that's connected for Victoria putting more of an effort into the beautification program. So it's not just about landscaping at the Sonics and stuff. It's about trying to clean up other parts of the town, and y'all are doing a great job. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. You good? All right, we're good with public and employee recognitions. We're going to go to items from council, and I have one item I'm going to start with. I was going to ask Mr. Garza to give us a Library Advisory Board meeting update since they met last week.
All right.
And Mr. Lofgren, thank you for attending. I know you were able to make it, so.
I called them out at the meeting too. In any case, well, thanks so much. I haven't had the opportunity to really, talk about this topic with you much, but this is a good opportunity for me to update you on the Library Advisory Board and a couple of facts. But I'll start off by reminding you that the Library Advisory Board met last Wednesday on the 31st. This was actually a rescheduled meeting. They were scheduled to meet on August 17th, but did not have quorum to meet on the 17th, and we do expect that to be an issue here in the near future, but I'll hit more on that later. You have in front of you some materials that we put in your read files, including the agenda packet for that meeting, as well as a couple of other documents that I'll reference as part of my update. But I'll go through each agenda item just briefly. So I won't go through the minutes part, but at their meeting, one of the first items was an update from Maureen Arndt, who is the architect and lead person with 720 Design that's helping us go through our library strategic plan. I know many of you, or all of you, had a chance to meet with her one-on-one as part of that exercise. And I think it's important to note that this library strategic plan is really centered around the services that the library offers, the spatial needs that the library has, and not necessarily associated with the content or any of the other conversations that might be going on associated with the library. But there's good work that's going on with that effort. She shared an update on some of the community input received through the both online survey exercise and also some of the public meetings. We recently also completed some work for the site planning of the entire site. We had received a grant last year from Humanities Texas to help design the exterior of the library to be more consistent with the downtown master plan, which you may recall suggested an entrance facing Main Street and just enhancing that access point, and also looking at an outdoor patio space on the site that is right adjacent from the Welder Center. And that process has concluded, and so we envision Maureen being here for our September 30th quarterly council workshop, where she'll provide a more in-depth update to you, and similar to the conversations we've had in those workshops with our Parks Master Planner and Downtown Master Planner, she'll be in here for an hour-long discussion with us on that progress. So good work taking place there. The next item on the agenda were the consideration of 2 appeals for 2 books, one of them being George and Look Past. You have that information in your packet as well. These were appeals that had been submitted, they'd been lingering, for lack of a better word, for a little while. They had been tabled by Library Advisory Board before, but at this meeting, the Library Advisory Board took action to uphold Dana's position to keep the books in the library. I know that there's been a lot of chatter around updating the policy, which I know will continue today and will continue in the near future. However, it's important to note that regardless of what policy is in place, it is likely that these books would have been upheld because of the verbiage included in the reevaluation forms. I'm not going to read it, but you have it in front of you. But these reevaluation forms do reference some concerns around LGBTQ matters, as well as some references to religion, which, as you know, once you hit on those, it becomes a little bit trickier because of the protected class and other things associated with the Constitution. So again, even though the policy conversation is ongoing, and even if there would have been a new policy that hits on the inappropriate content, it's likely that these books would have been upheld simply because of the verbiage that was included in the reevaluation forms. And there really wasn't much discussion from the board on that agenda item. Next was the collection development policy conversation. To kick off that conversation, I provided a brief update to the board on the conversation that had taken place here in terms of the direction that you have for them. We intentionally listed this item after the 2 appeals because we wanted to also be clear that the current conversation around the policy had nothing to do with the 2 appeals that were on the agenda. But anyway, so we spoke to them about your conversation around potentially having a desire to have a conversation around what is community standard, since we all know that that's one of the 3 prongs associated with the Miller test. We also spoke to them about, your concern around inappropriate, obscene, and pornographic material, regardless of anything else, right? Regardless of whether, who cares what the content of the book is, but there's potentially concern around inappropriate content, so we shared that with them. We shared with them thoughts around potentially some age appropriateness or rating system to more adequately place books in certain sections of the library. We were also very forthright with them that, your direction is not to pull books, not to ban books, but it's really more a conversation around community standards, conversation around inappropriate content, and a conversation around the placement of books. And so we reiterated that point to them, because we know that there can be chatter that suggests otherwise. And the mayor and I were on a phone call with somebody today where we had to make that point over and over again to clarify that, this isn't about LGBTQ issues from council's perspective. And so we made that point clear with the board as well. On those topics, the board did have a brief conversation around community standard. They felt that, trying to have a conversation around community standard was probably not their role to do. They suggested that if that is something that we want to aspire to do, that it's probably best to hire a consultant to come in from the outside to have a conversation, a robust conversation with all of our community to help develop this community standard. And so they felt that that was really just not their purview, not really the role of their expertise. And quite frankly, I agree. That obviously is a much larger monumental task to be able to do that. And I think everybody recognizes that. There was a conversation around, even if there were a community standard, there's definitely some hesitancy on the Library Advisory Board's part to include a reference to a community standard as it relates to the the collection development policy, because it's their opinion that the library is for all. And so they're concerned that potential inclusion of a community standard might limit the materials that enter the library. But it didn't really extend into a much more detailed conversation than that. The conversation shiftly focused to a conversation around the reevaluation process. And so, as you know, the reevaluation process currently requires citizens to submit a form. The language that's in the form, for the most part, only gives the option to remove a book. So there were some suggestions made about maybe just having a more robust form that allows residents to make recommendations on maybe placing a book in a different section and kind of just providing some information around that. There was some brief insinuation that potentially during the reevaluation process could be where a community standard gets considered, as opposed to sort of earlier in the process. There was obviously a lot of empathy to staff and the impact on staff if there's a very robust process that's placed, at the beginning stage, where then it would be thousands and thousands of books that would go through a process. But it wasn't a very in-depth conversation after that. There's typically time constraints associated with these meetings since they meet over lunch. And so ultimately, they decided to have a workshop, which we're currently planning on having next Tuesday evening. So this workshop would be after work hours to allow for more time for the conversation. But before they decided on that, there was also a brief conversation around rating systems, as I mentioned earlier. There was a point made by one of the Library Advisory Board members that they wanted me to make to you, and you have in front of you copies of the booklooks.org, which is an organization that many members of our community have referenced and provided copies of some of the excerpts in the books. This is what the source of those has been, which is Booklooks, which is an independent rating website. And I know there's been some conversations, but one of the points that was made was that even this organization recognizes that public libraries are a little bit more broad in terms of their content. What you have in front of you are copies of the FAQs of that organization, which specifically focuses their effort on school libraries and specifically references that the books that they review can be found at public libraries. And so one of the Library Advisory Board members simply wanted to make the point that even this organization that is used as a source by some of our community members recognizes that there's a difference between school library and public library. Anyway, ultimately, as I mentioned, there was a conversation around the role of parents that's been talked about. And so ultimately, we also suggested and came up with a recommendation to add a restricted juvenile library card. We have had some members of our community express concern around obviously the content of some of the books. And so while this is not intended in any way, shape, or form intended to be the answer to your request or the answer to what you've tasked us to look at, we felt that it was a good move to provide an option for parents that want greater oversight sooner rather than later. I think we all recognize that a conversation around community standard or a conversation around establishing a policy that would reevaluate books otherwise will take time. And so for parents that are wanting an option to be more involved sooner, that option exists today. And so library staffs are working on a formal rollout of advertising, if you will, that this library card option exists, but people are welcome to go to the library now and request it. They've already updated some of their forms in order to account for that. As I said, ultimately, there was a conversation around having a workshop next week, and so we'll entertain that next week. In terms of overarching next steps, I did want to also remind you that we have 2 appointments that are your appointments that have expired, and we do envision bringing those 2 appointments for you at our next regular council meeting. We have received 15 applications for those 2 slots, including the 2 incumbent members that wish to be reappointed. We do plan on sending you those applications by the end of this week so that you have more time to review those applicants as opposed to waiting until we post an agenda packet. And that way you can have more time to review those. We also know that 4 appointments are up for the county. All of their 4 are up at the same time. And we do know there's been some comments made by the county judge that all 4 will be replaced. And so that creates an issue with the existing members of feeling like, well, why do I even show up if I already know I'm going to get replaced? And so we think that's contributing to some of the quorum concerns that I alluded to earlier. And quite frankly, I don't blame them, for potentially losing interest in getting involved if the county judge is already conveying that they're going to be replaced. So that's just something to be mindful of. And so those reappointments, again, on our agenda at the next meeting, and we expect the county to make those appointments by the end of the month or early October as well. And lastly, I would be remiss if I didn't take a brief moment to express my level of support for our library staff and Dana. We are truly blessed to have Dana as our lead librarian in our system. I think we can all attest to a lot of the great work that department has done over the years under her leadership. And as you can imagine, this hasn't been an easy time for her and her staff. And while we all recognize up here that she's a great professional, we can also potentially see that some members of our community don't necessarily see it as that. And so I want to, for the record, convey that my support for Dana and the work that her and her team do, and I also certainly condone or don't condone, some of the behavior and some of the issues that our library staff are seeing. They're professionals. They do this for the love of the job, for the love of our community, and they certainly don't deserve some of the hate, quite frankly, that they're facing by some members of our community. And I think it's important that this conversation continue in a civil manner on all fronts. I know it will here. But with members of our community, because our staff, we wouldn't be able to do what we do without them. And so I think it's important that everyone respect our staff. And I support Dana 100%, and happy to answer any questions that you might have.
That was a great summary.
Thank you, Mr. Garza. The only thing I do have to say, is I do like Book Looks. I like their rating system. I do realize that, just looking at what you've provided with us tonight, that the decision would have been different had we had Book Looks. Just like the ALA and Texas Association of Libraries doesn't craft our policy, neither does Book Looks.
Right.
We are all individuals in the city. We can choose how we want our policy to develop, and if we want it to follow something like Book Looks, then that's our purview, even though they say that, doesn't mean it's not going to be in the public library. It may not be in the section that it's currently in, so. And thank you for getting those 15 applicants or all the applicants to us early. I'm going to try and make phone calls myself just to talk to all of them. And I encourage everybody else to reach out when you can. It's going to be one of our larger appointments, I think. We've had in a while.
Yeah, it goes without saying, right?
Right.
Once we finalize the logistical specifics for the meeting next Tuesday, we'll obviously send those out. And we'll see how the conversation goes.
I want to reiterate what you said too, or build upon it. We do a great job up here, I think. Hopefully it sets an example for the rest of the community in the tone and the manner and respectfulness that we get through this issue. It's a tough issue. It's an emotional issue. But keep in mind, most of the people that are doing this are pretty much volunteers that are trying to get it right. That includes everybody up here. It includes the library advisory board members that have chosen to, to volunteer for their community, and certainly the staff. This is not easy for Dana and her staff. It's a tough issue for all of us. Just everybody needs to be respectful. Speak your mind, but do it politely in a respectful manner. So. That's it. Any other items from council? Okay, we will get into citizens communication. Lori Etter, because this is about parks.
Good afternoon, Mayor and City Council members. I am Lori Eater, one of your Parks and Recs commissioners, and I am up here today to say thank you for the appointment last October. I was finishing out a term, and I'm here to respectfully ask to be reappointed for the next term. I have thoroughly enjoyed working with the Parks and Rec staff, with Jason and all his team, and walking through the master plan process was a great process, and I've just really enjoyed being on your commission, on your board, and I look forward to continue that. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Gay Patek.
Greetings, Mr. Mayor and City Council members. I hope y'all had a very nice Labor Day holiday. We do not need to have nude picture books in the children's section and young adult section of our library. We do not need to have transgender ideology books in the children and young adult sections in our library. We do not need to have violence and hate books in the children's section and in the young adult section in our library. We do not need to have sexually explicit books in the children's section or the young adult section in our library. We need books that promote character and good citizenship and timeless history. Now I want to talk a little bit about the circulation policy. I appreciate the work on the circulation policy, but at this point, if there are not also collection policy changes, then this merely shifts all responsibility to the parents, while at the same time ignoring community concerns. A restricted juvenile card does not change which books are in the children and young adult sections in the library. I also wonder how the ebook checkout will work, or how a 16-year-old will feel to have his mother or her mother with them when they have to check out a book when they're doing a research project. I am asking for changes in the collection policy for children and in the young adult arena. I have not heard parents raising complaints about children checking out books without their knowledge. This is about age and content inappropriate books that are purchased with our taxpayer dollars. I do believe we will come up with a solution. I know we're all working very hard on that. And I just want to thank you for your time and all the effort that you're putting into it. And also the Library Advisory Board, the library staff, and the city staff as well. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Ms. Jill Blocker?
Hi. My kids and I love to read. We can visit times and places in a good book that we'll never reach in real life. In books, we've learned about new people and things. We've learned big words we can't pronounce. And we've expanded our views of the world. That's what's so powerful about the library. Unfortunately, there are many here who seek to make our world smaller, not broader. You are being asked to filter what others read by their narrow view of morality. I've now read 15 of the 21 books on the proposed ban, and none of them included even a whiff of pornography. Most didn't even have a kiss. The fact that these innocuous books are on the list tells me that the real agenda here is to vilify being gay. The proposed action to remove these books from shelves is asking you to silence the LGBTQ voice, to make our community small-minded. That's not the community I love. In making LGBTQ books taboo, you would be telling people who already don't fit into their morality that they're damaged or bad. Instead of making them feel small, we should be helping them see themselves as the leaders and innovators I read about. Isn't that what we really want for our kids? There may be books on the list with pictures that make people uncomfortable. I didn't see them. The 15 books I read, however, don't belong on any proposed ban, and the fact that they are is nothing more than an effort to paint LGBTQ people as bad. They're not bad, and neither are you. Please don't make Victoria a small-minded place. You have the opportunity to help all kids flourish. Please make that choice.
Thank you, Ms. Blocker. Shelley Olgan?
Good evening. My name is Shelley Olguin, and I'm the club manager for the Victoria 4-H Shotgun Club. On behalf of the club, I would like to thank the Hotel Occupancy Tax Subcommittee of the Tourism Advisory Board for its recommendation to the City Council for the Victoria 4-H Shotgun Club to be awarded hot funds towards our whiz bang to be held April 1st and 2nd of 2023. This whiz bang will benefit about 150 youth from across Texas. The funds generated by this shoot allows us to send our members to competitions across Texas for chances to win college scholarships as well as other prizes. Once again, on the behalf of the club and a couple of our members here with me, we would like to say thank you for taking the time and believing in our youth in Victoria County. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Olguin. Mr. Jim Hester?
Hello, I'm Jim Hester. I've been with Victoria for 44 years now, and we have raised 6 kids in Victoria. And I was also a chemical engineer out at DuPont, and I have a patent on a patent that basically deals with greenhouse gases, and it deals with the worst greenhouse gas that's considered out there, better known as N2O. So anyway, what's interesting to me, and I'm going to bring up a few different things. One is the scientific method. And see, that was a point in around 1620. Can you believe that? 1620. It took that long for mankind to come up with a concept about how we're going to figure out what does and doesn't work. And that was done by Francis Bacon, who didn't say he was a great inventor, but he came up with a tool. And the tool he basically said was you observe, you measure, you explain, then you verify. It was in 1900th century, another version was proposed, and that is to propose a question, collect pertinent evidence, form an explanatory hypothesis, deduct its limitations, test them experimentally, then accept, reject, or modify the hypothesis. What's interesting about that is it basically changes it from, I see something going on, I want to understand why, to where I think I know it can go on, and let's go ahead and try that. And one of the weaknesses of mankind is it has tried experiments on its kids in various different cultures to try to figure out what goes on. And that's part of the argument I think that people are sharing. I understand there's a petition out there, and Gay, can you give me a copy of that? I might want to sign it. But anyway, moving right along. You've heard various speakers share results about studies of what goes on and how it affects people, and I think that that's a pretty good deal there to do that. The library has a book called Transgender to Transformed, a story of transition that will truly set you free. The author tells us how she bought that lie that she needed to become a man, and only ended up being a woman that could never have kids and a woman that needs to shave her face every day, according to that book. And so my concern is we're going down an experiment here. None of these it's great to say these kids can go see a whole bunch of different stuff, but all the data that we have says that you can't. And so I just want to be sure that you guys have that in thought. I would also like to say that some of the books that they took out, and there was a woman that came up here and talked about the three different sets of series of books, and it turns out that our kids also read those things, and one of our kids had this doll, because you could get the dolls for the American Girl set. And this is the girl of ours that got to be an RN and was one of the people that dealt with first responders to COVID stuff. She lives in Atlanta. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hester. Mr. Hayek. Good to see you.
Good to see you guys. So my name is John Hayek, 213 Woodchase Drive, and I'm up here because I'd like to be considered for appointment to the Parks Commission. And I've previously been on the Planning Commission. I was recognized for outstanding attendance, and I really enjoyed that opportunity and would like to be considered for a future volunteer opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Harley Fisk.
Good evening, and thank you for allowing me to speak. I've been listening to the debates on books for some time now. I've even spoken a time or two. Perhaps it is time to clarify a few thoughts. This discussion is not really about books. It's not about our children or our grandchildren. The discussion is about control. There's a very vocal group that is trying to control the narrative. They believe we should all follow their lead and not think alike. They wish to marginalize members of the LGBTQ plus community and those of us who choose to support all of God's children in every way that we can. I have listened to speakers who quoted statistics that supposedly show the suicide rate of LGBT individuals that have not received the support they need. They've been silent as to the effects of marginalizing this population. They have not mentioned the difficulties these individuals suffer due to a lack of understanding, acceptance, and inclusion. I've heard this group use the Bible to justify their desire to marginalize this group. All right? This is the same Bible that was once used to justify slavery. All right? Perhaps that group would be better off if they remember that of these, the greatest of all is love. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Vonderup.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. I would like to thank Gilbert and Jesus. Oh, there you are. Jesus on lowering their property taxes for 3%. I appreciate it. Chuck Norris says he don't have to do anything anymore from the Texas Rangers. I appreciate it.
It was 5%.
Oh, 5%? Yeah. Okay, I guess the paper got run up because I know you never remember. But anyway, Jesus summed everything up for the book, so I don't have to say anything about that. But I did give updated information for everyone to look at. And also, I believe it's Nazareth Academy, the teachers can start carrying firearms and stuff based upon the faith. Oh, I got it. I was just testing you to see if you were paying attention. That's good. And also, I want to thank the district attorney and Commissioner Burns. They had 9 dogs in animal control because dog abuse cases, so they moved them from animal control. So now animal control can start trapping dogs. I had to understand they had to bite you before they could help you. And I need some traps, you know. And they said they ordered some and got some, but I haven't got any yet, you know. So I don't know. There's 3 dogs that's come, and there's pictures of them, and then there's a pit bull on trailer 27 that runs all over the place, and there's others, and it's not just in the trailer park. It's all in Victoria. If you want, I can take pictures and give it to you. But animal control will always have a job because they can probably catch like 10 a day, and they'll never be finished. And just want to appreciate the district attorney again and Scott Buchanan for animal control and Commissioner Burns for moving the dogs, so maybe there's a chance they can start trapping them again. And under the First Amendment rights, either side can talk, within the way they want, as long as it's civil. So, that's why we're here. It's not who's right or wrong and all that. It's just our Constitution and stuff. I appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
Thanks. Mr. Rinke.
Mr. Mayor, council members, thanks for allowing me to speak with you again this afternoon and again and again. And I know you guys are saying, oh, Lord, here this guy comes again. Anyway, I appreciate the opportunity. Last time I spoke with you, I asked if you realized that you might have been selected or appointed for just such a time as this. And I think that you ought to realize, all of you, that it's not just coincidence or happenstance that you're serving as mayor or city council members in these momentous times. You have an opportunity to be the salt and light in our community as we stand against obscene and age-inappropriate literature that's being offered to the youth in the Victoria Public Library. Some of the changes to the collection policy made by the library board, such as restricted library cards, which prevent minor children from checking out obscene literature without parental consent, or a step in the right direction. But that's only one step. The obscene literature is still available on the shelves in our public library, where children can pick it up, read it, and begin the process of corruption of their minds with prurient, sexually explicit words and pictures. We and you must put a stop to this and protect the minds and the spirits of our children. We appreciate your help in addressing and rectifying the problem. Thanks so much for allowing me to speak with you.
Thank you, Mr. Rinke. All right, with that, we'll close citizens communication. Thank you all for coming forward and speaking with us tonight. We do like hearing from you. And we're going to go into items for public hearings.
Item C1 is a budget public hearing.
Council, I really don't have a presentation, but I just want to inform public that the council is proposing adopting a $183 million budget for the city of Victoria. This slide was presented last week. I'm here to address any questions down the road.
All right, at this time, I will open the public hearing for item C1. Anybody wishing to speak on this item, please come forward. Seeing no one, we'll close the public hearing and go to item C2.
Item C2 is a public hearing on the 2022-2023 City of Victoria tax rate.
Again, council, same presentation I gave y'all last week. Before you is the proposed tax rate 5582, which is a decrease of 3 cents, not good with percentage. So I like to stick with the dollars value. So it's 3 cents drop. I'll address any question you might have after the public hearing.
Thank you for that drop. At this time, and Mr. Anyway, let's open the public hearing for item C2. Anybody wishing to speak on this item, please step forward. Seeing no one rise up, we will close the public hearing. Thank you, Mr. Rainier.
Thank you.
On to the consent agenda, and we're going to pull item D5.
Yes, sir. Item D1 is the adoption of minutes of the regular meeting of the August 16th, 2022 meeting and the special meeting on August 30th, 2022. Item D2 is a resolution approving a variance to section 21-82A2 for the property located at 1205 South East Street in order to allow for the approval of a final plat depicting the reduction of the required minimum lot width. Item D3 is the resolution approving a variance to section 21-92A for the properties located at 406 West San Antonio Street, 1402 North Vine Street, 1501 North Glass Street, and 1504 West Guadalupe Street in order to allow for the approval to reduce the amount of required off-street parking facilities. Item D4 is a resolution approving variances to Section 21-83A 4 and 6 for the property located at 406 West San Antonio Street and 1402 North Vine Street in order to allow for the approval of a final plat depicting the reduction of the required setback lines. Item D6 is a resolution approving an amendment to the interlocal cooperation agreement for Gulf Bend Center for the provision of mental health peace officer services.
I move we adopt the agenda, the consent agenda as read.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve items D1 through 4 and 6. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. D5.
Item D5 is a resolution approving a variance to Section 5-149A1A2 and Section 5-152B1H for properties located at 6512 and 6704 Northeast Sacklands Parkway in order to allow for the approval to erect an off-premises multi-tenant freestanding pylon sign.
Thank you. And in front of everybody in your read file was an updated resolution.
I move that we adopt this item with the updated resolution.
I second it.
Right. Is there anything
Somebody seconds it.
to add on? No? Okay. All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. E1.
Item E1 is an ordinance approving and adopting a budget for fiscal year beginning on October 1st, 2022, in the total amount of $183,131,658.
So move. Second.
Got a motion and a second on item E1 to approve it. Is there any further discussion? Thank you, Mr. Raina, Mr. Wesley Janaszek, and the rest of the staff for getting all this pulled together, all the department heads as well. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item E2.
Item E2 is a resolution ratifying the property tax rate.
So move. Second.
Got a motion and a second to approve item E2. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. E3.
Item E3 is an ordinance setting the tax rate for the 2022 tax year at the total rate of .5882 per $100 of property valuation. And the motion language is at the dais for each of you.
I move that the property tax rate be increased by the adoption of a tax rate of .05582, which is effective a 2.22% increase in the tax rate. A second.
Okay, and to clarify, that's a tax rate of .5582? Right?
Okay. Yes.
Okay.
Which is a reduction of 5% in the tax rate.
Big reduction. 0.5582 per 100. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor of approving item E3, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. E4.
Item E4 is a resolution approving a second renewal to the city's annual bulk fuel supply contract with New Distributing in the amount of $832,127.30.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Good to see you all. I understand that there may have been some questions around the renewal of this contract, and I just would like to address those at this time.
Roger, if you can spend a quick minute simply just reminding council on just our arrangement, how we come up with it, and obviously the fact that this is an amendment and when we probably are going to bid that out again.
Sure, yeah, so the last bid on this contract was in 2020. We solicited several bids. I think we had maybe 4 submissions, but the way that the suppliers bid this contract is based off of a what's known as a rack price through the oil price information system, also known as OPIS. There are 3 different brands of pricing. There's spot, which is basically a futures market. There's rack, which is wholesale, and retail, which is gas station fuel prices. So they take a rack price from a specific day that we indicate in the RFP. They then add a differential to the price of each product, which is their markup to deliver to us, and then give us a whole number for each gallon of gas, diesel, dyed diesel, diesel exhaust fluid, any product that we get from them, and then we compare their differential rate based on the price of the fuel that day. So we run a first-year contract. It has 3 renewals, so this will be our 2nd renewal. We have 1 more year after this in which we'll go back out to bid.
Thank you, Mr. Welder. Need a motion?
We adopt.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? No? Don't forget teal season opens Saturday.
Yes, sir, I'm ready.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. E5.
Item E5 is a resolution allocating funding to outside agencies for the 2022-2023 from the hotel occupancy tax funds.
Mayor and Council, thank you for your time this evening. I have a short presentation just to go over this year's annual Hotel Occupancy Tax Funds Awards Program, how that went, and to present a resolution for your vote tonight to award the specific amounts to the respective agencies who applied. Just a timeline of the process and how it worked this year. The month of July, the entire month of July, we did have the applications open for those times for all organizations that did want to apply. We did host 4 workshops, one on the 6th, the 13th, the 20th, and the 27th. Those were all in person, located at 700 North Main, room 205. And those were held during the open application period. In early August, we did have the review of the applications by CVB staff, prepared the calculations based on the objective data provided by each applicant. On August 16th, the Hot Fund Subcommittee of the Tourism Advisory Board met. We did have unanimous or complete attendance, at that meeting with Mr. Panchal, Raj Panchal of the Comfort Inn, Brenda Guajardo of the Courtyard Marriott, James Weirden of the Inn on Main, Rosanna Frisch of Victoria Mall, and Elizabeth Tice of the Children's Discovery Museum. We met for several hours. That was a publicly posted meeting, was accessible to the public. And at that meeting, the subcommittee, did unanimously recommend the recommendations, or approve the recommendations, Then we are here tonight to consider the resolution. If you approve the resolution tonight, we will work with legal to formulate the contracts, which will be then disseminated to the awarded agencies. Just a little bit of information on the program this year. We did have, as in years past, similar to years past, 135,000 total available available funding, consistent with previous years, which was approved by council at the August 2nd meeting. We did have 27 applications received. This was a record number of applications. The closest I was able to find was 21 several years ago. This is 10 more than we received last year. And you see that level of requested funding over $390,000, which is $100,000 more than what was requested last year. The median award size, and I'll go through the list here in a minute, was a little over $4,400. So the number of applications did affect the award size this year. So the background information and how we scored them, we looked purely at objective data. There's a percentage of the available funding is evenly split among applicants hitting 4 markers. This is to take the place of what we used to use was sort of subjective. So there was a subjective scoring component in previous years. We changed that to accommodate for certain groups, and then so you have the 4 major markers of workshop attendance, document compliance, so they submitted the application, they submitted a budget, hotel room night documentation if they had any, credibility and transparency, that they followed the instructions that we presented at the workshop, especially in regards to budget, highlighting items, things where they're going to use the funds. And then, of course, also prior use of funds. So those who have applied in the past, that they did hold their event and did put a full faith effort to try to submit their post-event report to receive their funds. That's just part of the scoring. Another big part of the scoring is also based on hotel room nights. As we'll look over in a minute, the organizations that did produce the most room nights did receive the most recommended level of funding. We look back for the past 3 years, as well as projected room nights for the coming year, because we don't want to exclude possible new events from also participating in that as well. I'm not going to go through every item here. There's 27 listed. That's why I had to split it up along 2 slides for readability. But our 3 biggest awardees were the Club at Colony Creek, the Museum of the Coastal Bend, and the Memorial Weekend Bash. Those 3 did provide the most room nights. And, there are some success stories of working with us. We worked very closely, for instance, with the Memorial Weekend Bash. That was a group that needed some assistance with tracking the room nights. We showed them good methods to do that, and their award increased a little over $2,800 from prior years. So there are events that produce room nights, and we will work closely with them to help show those room nights and help their score. There were 2 applicants you see there who did have stars by their name, the Quilt Guild of Greater Victoria and the Texas Water Safari. They were maxed out. That is the amount that they requested on their application, so they were maxed out at that amount. Then you can see the club at Colony Creek listed at the top there. So every awardee was, every applicant was recommended some level of funding. Moving on the appeals process, they do have a chance to submit a written appeal if they do not agree with the subcommittee's recommendation. All applicants were notified via letter from myself on August 2017. They were given 2 days to submit a written appeal. For your consideration, we received no appeals from any awarded groups. Once the subcommittee recommendations are approved by City Council, CVB will work with the legal department to issue contracts to awardees. They will be signed by our city manager as well as a representative of those organizations. And then the current reimbursement process, so this program does go through from October 1, 2022 through September 30th, 2023. The organizations can be reimbursed in single installments, or they could be reimbursed through periodic installments. We do have some groups, specifically arts groups, that like to be paid out throughout the year. They apply and are awarded for their entire season of events versus something, say, like a golf tournament, which only takes a course of 1 weekend. So you see the recommended allocation of 135, 27 total awards, 27 total applications. We did receive no appeal forms. Now we do understand that, as I mentioned, had a record number of applications, so that will be something that we discuss possibly at an upcoming workshop with council. Jesus mentioned that a few weeks ago. We can see that amount of applications possibly increase. I think that is definitely due to the CVB being a very outwardly facing organization. We come across a lot of groups, a lot of folks putting on events. And I think it'll involve some engagement with our applicants. Are they happy with the process, or are there some concerns about the growing number of applications? It'll be sort of a multifaceted approach. We were happy to provide some level of funding for everybody this year, but it is a program that we will be taking a look at as well over the coming months, just because of those growing number of applications. I can answer any questions at this time.
You just answered mine, Joel. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to commend you. The fact that we didn't get any appeals may have just been an aberration, but I think more likely it was the way the process was handled, and I think we're getting it down, or maybe we've got it down.
Thank you.
Do you have any?
Motion to approve.
Oh, there you go. Thank you.
I second.
Only thing I had to say is keep in mind what Mr. Novosad just said. We're going to have to make a policy decision. I can see this getting where there's so many applicants, we're trying to award everybody, that we're not helping anybody. And so we may have to decide as a council if we want to consolidate it and make sure that we, make it a wide variety that's still eligible, but where it's more impactful. But a minimum hotel night stays or something like that might be, I don't know what it is, but we need to work on it. Any other comments?
Are you thinking about increasing the allocation? I mean, the amount of money that we give
No, I'm
them?
thinking about restricting the applicant
Variety?
through requirements.
Okay.
Because I don't know that we have the growth in hotel tax funds to really go through more money to allocate, as opposed to making sure that we decide what we think is important for the applicants to qualify. That's it. I just don't want to water it down where it's not affecting not helping anybody.
Mhm. Maybe a percentage of whatever their profits are, so if they need more money, or, base it on a financial report instead of just, or add that to it.
It'd be a whole host of different ways. We're just gonna have to brainstorm and
Okay.
put a whole bunch of ideas out there. And I'm sure Mr. Novosad and his team have some too. All right, if there's no other comments, all those in favor of approving item E5, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Item E6.
Item E6 is a resolution appointing 3 members to the Parks and Recreation Commission.
Good evening. Good evening, Mayor and Council. So tonight, the resolution before you this evening will appoint 3 members to the Parks and Recreation Committee. And the purpose of that committee is to advise the Parks and Recreation Department on matters pertaining to the planning and development of parks and recreation areas. The board is composed of 9 members that serve 3-year terms, and members may not serve more than 2 consecutive terms. Current members include Mr. Lee Keeling, Mr. Mike Rivera, Ms. Gail Repka, Mr. Brian Billingsley, Mr. Jesse Olivares, Ms. Ashley McGee, Ms. Lori Eder, Mr. Stephen Fort, and Mr. Justin Urbano. The appointment of 3 members will expire at the end of September. Lori Eder, Justin Urbano, and Stephen Fort do wish to be reappointed and are eligible for reappointment. And the new appointments will expire in September of 2025. And the applications were received from Ms. Eder, Mr. Urbano, Mr. Fort, and Mr. John Hayek, who we heard from earlier today. So the ballots were placed to the dice for you. They already have your names on them, so you know that we cannot vote by secret ballot. So if you'll please circle the name of the 3 members that you wish to appoint to the commission. And if there's not 3 clear winners, then we'll vote again between the applicants with the most votes on the kind of collect. Just one moment.
Ashley, we cue the Jeopardy theme, please? Yeah, that's right. Will you appoint?
Okay, so we have 2 people that we've chosen. Ms. Lori Eder and Mr. Urbano received the most votes, but there was a tie between Mr. Fort and Mr. Hayek. So if you'll vote on your number 2 between those 2 people only, please. And Mr. Hayek's name will also go along with Lori Eder's and Mr. Urbano's names in that resolution.
All right. Anybody care to make the motion?
I move that we reappoint, was it Laurie?
Lori and
And Mr. Urbano and John Hike to the Parks and Recreation Commission.
I second it.
All right, have a motion and a second. Any comments? Big thank you to everybody that has chosen to serve. If you weren't successful this evening, don't be deterred. Please go ahead and put your name in for something else. We really appreciate all the citizens that step forward and volunteer for these important committees for the city. So thank you so much. And with that, all those in favor of approving item E6 with the names as read, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. No city manager reports, no work session. We are going to recess into an executive session at 6:07 p.m.
The City Council will recess into executive session on the 6th day of September 2022 at 6:07 p.m. Subject to the executive session is executive session in accordance with Texas Government Code 551.087, 551.072, and 551.071.
Thank you, Ms. Hilbert. Yeah, we'll recess for 10 minutes.